I'ma set it off. This your boy Baby Blue.
Whoa. This your boy Slick, I'm the wild man of the clique.
This your boy Pleasure.
This your boy Spectacular.
Together we are Pretty Ricky.
Ricky Fontaine. Pretty Ricky, what they call him.
Pretty Ricky, a hip-hop and R&B group formed in 1997 with members Pleasure P, Baby Blue, Spectacular, and Slickum. One of the most difficult things to do for an artist is to break into a music industry saturated with acts just like you, or at least after the same goal you are, to become as popular as possible in order to sell more records. An even more difficult thing to do is being an R&B artist looking to climb to the top with all that's needed and the marks you have to meet to have success. It's not at all like being a rapper. Anybody can be a rapper. Not many can entertain through vocal structure and melodic sound. The thing about Pretty Ricky is they had both. Besides Pleasure P, the rest of the group were in fact rappers. Therefore, it always confused charts where to place them, and so they were able to flourish in both lanes. Especially in 2007 when they released their late night special album that was #1 on both hip-hop and R&B charts, along with the top of the Billboard charts altogether. Pretty Ricky were a phenomenon in the mid to late 2000s as they had a unique sound for the time where R&B groups weren't the popular thing to be in hip-hop, and to have these guys push the barrier of sexuality with their sound was a different vibe. Their first major success came on their second but first major label album Blue Stars, as its first single Grind With Me in 2005 reached #7 on Billboard and went platinum and was one of the leading selling ringtones that year. That song introduced us to what would be a group that had back-to-back gold albums and a future that could have seen them hold R&B down for at least the next 6 to 10 years. Each member had something about them that catered to one aspect ladies wanted to indulge in, and the rap side made them listenable for the men who championed their raunchy, highly sexual take on music. But one thing more difficult than making it big in the industry is being a group of 4 people that all have creative ideas, different moods on different days, and different goals for themselves, especially as young men. Eventually, age and life experience sets in, and perspectives change on what's the best way they can move forward that satisfies them. Add to that stolen money within the camp, and disagreements on the business side eventually became too much for the group, and by 2007 they had put out their final album together before splitting and losing their popularity in the middle of their prime. What happened? Salute to Ted Bundy for inspiring this video. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. You can also send a super thanks by clicking the button below. Enjoy the video. Pretty Ricky was a hip-hop and R&B group from Miami, Florida that was signed by Joseph Smith, father of bandmates Baby Blue and Spectacular in 1997. The 4 consisted of those 2 along with Slickum, rounded off by singer Marcus Cooper or Pleasure P. Their name derives from a character off the hit sitcom Martin who went by the name Ricky Fontaine, Pretty Ricky what they call him. They brought that character to life through song and on stage with their borderline too sensual for TV but dirty enough to relate to everyone's secret bedroom desires, and it was a hit. After their first independent album, they signed with Atlantic and went gold back-to-back in 2005 and 2007. From there, Pleasure P, wanting more for his talents, accused manager Joseph Smith of keeping all the proceeds from their music along with shows for himself while they individually had nothing to show for it. He left the group in 2007 and went on to have success on his own, being nominated for 3 Grammys on his solo debut. They attempted a comeback in 2020, but by then the potential was squandered and no one really cared. Here's why. Stunt #1, bad management. You know that saying, family or friends and business don't mix? Well, that couldn't be more true in this case. It always starts off great. The manager has the money and possibly connections needed to make artists with talents seen by labels that display them to the masses. If treated correctly, this formula can pay huge dividends for everyone involved and for the fans. Produce great music when the artists are being treated correctly and comfortable. But according to at least Pleasure P, their manager, who was also the father of two of its members, wasn't doing good business and in the end stole close to $10 million from the group altogether, including money from his own sons. This, unfortunately, is part of what happens often in the music industry to artists that don't have a clue how business works. It's hard to when you're signed at such a young age like they were, being in their teens and early 20s when all the success and popularity finally hit. After signing with Blue Star Entertainment, Pleasure P says that the group were all housed in one place early on and all their money went to manager Joseph Blue Smith, including anything they made on tour or at a show. They weren't seeing any advances or money you would expect a top of the charts music act selling millions of ringtones and going platinum on singles to see, and it made them question management, or at least made Pleasure P do. He compared the situation to a pimp and a hoe working all day to come home to nothing. This caused rifts within the group, mainly between he and Baby Blue, whose father was being accused of the stealing and bad management. The tensions got more and more serious, and eventually Pleasure P decides to leave. Stunt number 2, replacing the sound. When Pleasure P left the group in 2007, it was time for Pretty Ricky to find another vocalist to lead the group, but it wasn't at all as easy as it sounds. In all honesty, Pleasure P, aka Marcus Cooper, was, if not the face, the sound of that group, and outside of that, what were the remaining 3 members but below average rappers? Then you may say, well, just find another guy that can sing, right? Wrong, because they tried that twice by replacing P with Foreplay and later a singer called Lingerie. Unfortunately, none were the perfect match to transition from losing a Grammy-nominated artist like Pleasure P, who went on to have his own success personally and writing songs for others. Pretty Ricky released one album after in 2009, self-titled, and this time were 97 on the top 100 charts and 14 for R&B. This came after going number 1 across the board just 2 years prior. Their songs weren't as catchy, their concepts weren't as creative or pushed the limit like what Pleasure P wrote for the group, and it was hard for fans to fall in love with new face after new face when none of the new faces brought the sound they had with its original members. Pleasure P's album, The Introduction of Marcus Cooper, came out the same year and was top 10 on the Billboard 100 and number 2 for R&B and hip-hop albums. Nominated, like mentioned, for 3 Grammys for the song Under and the album as a whole. Bad management, losing their key piece, it was just misstep after misstep, and the group were pretty much done just as fast as they blew up. Stunt number 3, time ran its course. By the end of the 2000s, all artists had to assess where they were and make the necessary changes to what they were doing or die with an era that was coming to a close, the 2000s. A fun time in hip-hop and R&B where styles were different, ringtones were a thing, social media was just making its way, and fans no longer needed to go out and physically support an artist. When 2010 hit and the sound of rap changed, young fans became older and R&B itself faded, especially the R&B group, Pretty Ricky had no chance. By this time, they were scrambling as a group trying to not only find another lead singer, but retain as much of the fans they could from their 2000 success without a sound that catered to the new generation. Once an artist loses the attention of the fans for whatever reason, it's almost impossible to rewind time and get those back. They attempted a comeback in 2020 when the original bandmates had left management by then through the Millennium Tour in 2019, but let's be honest, no one really cared. A song called Body came from it, but nothing substantial now that they're almost 40 and way past their popularity window. All in all, Pretty Ricky had their time. Even if it was stolen, to make $10 million in the short time they had fame is incredibly fortunate. Maybe they individually didn't see near that, but it still meant that for that moment in music, they had their share of success and left us with a few hits to feed our nostalgia. But for these reasons, Pretty Ricky's growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.